Card games are having a huge moment. Marvel Snap is so big that everyone who plays it hates it. Pokemon TCG Pocket is introducing thousands of people to the card game and raking in hundreds of millions of dollars. Balatro, one of the best games I've ever played, is hooking people and winning GOTY awards with its crazy synergy and repeatable runs. And this year, I got addicted to Solitaire. Why? Why me? Why? I wish I could tell you I was hooked on a weird Solitaire, like Regency Solitaire 2. Right up my alley, I love historical romance. And apparently Solitaire. Or something high concept, like Mike Bithel's The Solitaire Conspiracy. It's got espionage and FMV cutscenes. Nothing could be more me. But no. The game I got addicted to is a spin on Klondike, the most famous and basic kind of solitaire, at least for kids who grew up using Windows computers in the 90s. It's called Sawayama Solitaire, from developer Zachtronics. I have beaten, hang on a moment, 934 games of Sawayama Solitaire since I downloaded this app in late September. Some games feel impossible, some are absurdly easy. Most of them are a satisfying detangling of cards that has me immediately pressing that new game button once I get the win. How is the most basic card game on earth owning my ass like this? I think it's because one of the embarrassments of applied probability is that we cannot analyze the original game of solitaire. What's the chance of winning? How to play well? How do various changes of rules change the answers? Surely, you say, the computer can do this. Not at present, not even close. That's a quote from mathematician Percy Diaconis. Professor Diaconis is one of the coolest people I have ever heard of, and that is undoubtedly why he did not reply to my interview request. He and fellow mathematician Dave Bayer are the people who proved that it takes 7 riffle shuffles to truly randomize a 52-card deck. He also ran away from home when he was 14 to become a magician. I think that was normal in 1960. But the point stands. For Diaconis, card tricks were a slippery slope to an interest in probability, which led to a sad but inevitable fate, taking a degree in statistics and becoming a world-renowned mathematician. You hate to see it. But it's not hard to see the relationship between magic and math. Cards contain limitless possibilities. In fact, math tells us there are more combinations of cards in a 52-card deck than there are atoms on Earth. Hey, what? What does that mean? But the atoms are the little ones. Writing for Quanta, Erica Clareich asked mathematician Ron Graham what that means in practice. He told her, if everyone had been shuffling decks of cards every second since the start of the Earth, you couldn't touch 52 factorial, the number of possible arrangements of a 52-card deck. Clareich goes on, anytime you shuffle a deck to the point of randomness, you have probably created an arrangement that has never existed before. So that's nuts. Card math is also useful for game devs, simulating randomness in prototypes, even if they're not making card-based games. This randomness is probably one of the reasons I can't stop playing Solitaire. No 2 decks of randomized cards are the same. No 2 rounds of Solitaire are alike. It's difficult for the human mind to comprehend the mathematical probabilities at play in card games. However, one thing we can understand is why that gameplay can keep us hooked. It's called the jerk. In a study from the Japan Advanced Institute of Science and Technology, a team of researchers described the jerk as a sudden change in acceleration. It's mostly used to describe physical sensations, your elevator dropping suddenly, a theme park ride jolting you around a corner. But in games, it's informational, the balance between certainty and uncertainty in reaching a goal. For example, when you start a round of Overwatch, you don't have a lot of information about the other players. What characters they've chosen, where they'll attack from, whether you're facing a bunch of randos or a coordinated team. One second you're setting up, the next second Pharah is bombarding you with rockets. You have information, and now you need to do something about it. That's an example of the jerk, but it's certainly not relegated to action games.
Puzzle games by default require having some kind of an insight, like some kind of a realization. It can be possible to make that like realization in a puzzle into kind of an aha moment.
That's Arvi Teikari, and you'll hear more from him later. Almost all card games tend to center around these aha moments that come when you start to have a bigger picture of the deck. Think the next card being flipped in Texas Hold'em, filling your hand in Balatro and getting the exact card you need. There are other factors that contribute to games being hooky, like how frequently you're successful and how difficult it is to win. Card games tend to sit in a sweet spot on this scale. One of the researchers in the JACE study, Professor Noor Mal-Khalid, called them typical incomplete information games. Short, repeatable rounds, chances, and strategizing make them among the most entertaining, even addictive, games. This particular study focused on Chinese card games like Big Two, Winner, and Fighting the Landlord, which sounds awesome. I'm not a scientist, so take my analysis with a grain of salt here, but I can see how solitaire fits this description. It's incredibly easy to repeat a round, and while you start with some information with the cards face up on the board, you're constantly getting little hits of more. The moments when you flip exactly the card you need, setting off a chain reaction of moves to organize your board, feel so good. But that feeling is not easy to manufacture.
By default, I don't enjoy the idea of when you deal a deck of cards to play a solitaire, you might get an impossible hand and you can't know that. I'm Arvi Teekari alias Hempuli. I'm a Finnish game dev based in Helsinki. And I've been making games basically since childhood, let's put it that way.
Arvi is best known as the developer behind Baba Is You, a fiendishly clever block-pushing puzzler that netted a ton of accolades in 2019. Arvi brought that same humor and puzzling sensibility to a solitaire mystery, his collection of solitaire games that came out on itch.io this year. And he's the problem! It's his fault that I'm addicted to solitaire! Why would you do this to me?
My main interest in making games is kind of to surprise the player, to create some reaction of amazement or amusement or something. I played the Zachtronics Solitaire Collection and noticed myself enjoying it and noticed myself getting kind of ideas for what if I tried to design my own solitaire where you had this kind of like a gimmick in it or this kind of detail in it.
I was diligently doing my research before our interview, and I saw that Arvi had been inspired by Zachtronics Solitaire, a collection of all of the solitaire minigames that were originally tucked away in each of the developer's past releases. So, like any good journalist would, I bought the collection, and I bought a solitaire mystery, and now I have a mental health crisis! So thanks, Arvi. As he mentioned, the solitaires of mystery all have a twist to them. In Chaos Solitaire, every time you move a card, 2 random cards swap spots. Or Tap Solitaire, where you can start temporary stacks by tapping cards like you do in Magic the Gathering. One of my favorite variants lets you tear cards in half. And 52-card Pickup Solitaire drops all the cards in a pile, and you have to pick them up in order. This is one of the solitaires that demonstrates how challenging the math behind digital solitaire can be for game developers.
And something like Zachtronics Solitaire Collection actually has systems in place to make sure that every game you play is possible to be beaten.
It does?
I don't know how to do that, but when trying to balance my solitaire games, it was interesting to notice that inevitably, making a more difficult solitaire does usually mean that I'm also making it more likely that the player can get stuck in it.
The 52-card Pickup Solitaire is conceptually perfect. I love it, and it's so funny, but boy, is it difficult. Conversely, you can go too far in the other direction.
It feels more exciting to solve a solitaire if you know that you might not have solved it. There's currently one solitaire in a solitaire mystery that people have reported is always solvable no matter what. Like you cannot get truly stuck. It does feel like a bug, even though technically, like, yeah, you can play it. Like it's a working solitaire, you can get to the end, but it lacks kind of that something. Tap Solitaire is maybe the most solid of the solitaires in terms of being like a traditional solitaire. You can play it with a normal deck of cards. And the way it works is something that you can very easily simulate in real world. Royal Flush Solitaire is satisfying because it feels like one of those, what if this other thing, but recreated as a solitaire that ended up working really well. Like it's basically making poker hands in a solitaire context. And I think it worked really nicely. And people have commented that they like it quite a bunch.
So many kinds of solitaire. Depending on your definition of solitaire, This year's biggest game is a solitaire. Balatro has sold millions of copies and made millions of dollars, and that was before it came out on mobile. It's just a single-player card game, but it's got incredible complexity because of the different ways the cards can interact with each other and that decks can be built. 52 factorial, baby! Probably even more, because there's jokers and tarot cards. One of the interesting things about Balatro is that while it's widely described as a poker variant, its gameplay owes more to Big Two, one of the Chinese card games mentioned in that study. Any card game can become a new, even more addictive one with just a twist. The possibilities might be infinite, and that's something we simply don't know about playing cards. But also, we don't know where playing cards came from. One of the things that makes games a tricky area of study is that up until very recently, they've been physical objects that get a lot of use. Dice and board games are sturdier and might last the test of time. Cards are not. Think of how grubby your most used deck of playing cards is. You might not think twice about tossing it for a new one. And future historians are wailing and gnashing their teeth about it because, oh my god, an extant 2024 card deck depicting popular figure Shrek and his companion? The donkey? What an important and unique historical object! Often the game pieces that get preserved are the ones that are fancier and decorative, or ones that were owned by notable people whose random toy might be considered historically significant. In her book, Gaming the Stage, Playable Media and the Rise of English Commercial Theater, Gina Bloom writes that playing cards were mentioned in Spanish anti-gaming regulations as far back as 1332. But the oldest preserved complete set, where no cards are missing from the deck, is this one from the Netherlands in the late 1470s. The Met says the cards were hardly used, if at all. It is possible that they were conceived as a collector's curiosity rather than a deck for play, a tradition we should uphold today. But more important for understanding card evolution is this deck from the Mamluk Sultanate in what is now Egypt. Even though it's younger than the Dutch deck, it dates from around 1500, this Mamluk deck contains some potential clues towards the origins of playing cards. As Torgierda points out on this immaculate personal website, these cards mark the high card of each suit, similar to Chinese money cards and Persian Ganjifa cards. Andrew Lowe's The Game of Leaves, an inquiry into the origin of Chinese playing cards, puts 1294 in China as the earliest reliable date that the existence of cards has been recorded ever in all of history. But we don't have anything left of the cards themselves. Some researchers point to very old Chinese tile-based games like dominoes and mahjong as precursors. Carved tiles are a hop, skip, and a jump to cards once we get over ourselves and invent paper already. Actually, people probably made cards from like wood and leaves and cloth before they jumped to paper, but anyway, there are lots of different kinds of cards in China. They've got domino, they've got chess, they've got money, they've got number. The money cards are the ones that historians point to as potential precursors for our modern playing cards, since money cards eventually developed into 4 recognizable suits. On the other hand, Ganjifa cards came from what was then Persia and are recorded as far back as the 14th century. They originally had a lot more suits, and fancy versions of these cards were popular in the Mughal courts of India during the 1500s, where they would have been made from shells or ivory, which is so cool. They must have made really good noises. Whether or not the Ganjifa cards were based on Chinese cards originally, cards came to Europe through the Middle East. Throughout the most of time until quite recently, Christian Europe and the Islamic Middle East and North Africa were passing a conquering baton back and forth across the Mediterranean. One day the Franks are sacking Tripoli. The next day the Saracens are conquering Sicily. It's a whole thing. I know I'm oversimplifying it. Please don't yell at me. Obviously, this led to a lot of bloodshed, but it also led to a beautiful sharing of knowledge. As you probably know, chess came to Europe via Persia and Arabia, and so did, math. So too playing cards. The first cards that came to Europe weren't uniform like our now standard deck. As playing cards traveled north, European countries developed custom suits and decks with varied numbers of cards. This part is actually kind of funny, like they spread from Italy to Germany and Germany was like, oh no, icky, we want our own. Thanks to an already robust printing industry, Germany became the hub of playing card production in Europe during the 14th century. But then, the French. In an ancient display of branding prowess, the French developed the card iconography that has taken over the world. They standardized the suits and simplified the colors, paring the designs down to red and black, which made printing them much easier. Due to their simplicity and the ease of production, French playing cards took over Europe. And much like how the original playing cards came west through commerce and colonization, French playing cards went back east through commerce and colonization. For example, Portuguese sailors took them to Japan in the 16th century before Japan went into isolation and developed its own dope-ass playing cards. Now, maybe you're wondering, where does the United States come into this? I'm American. We invented jokers. The one you take out of the deck. No matter where you place the origin of playing cards geographically, or how much you understand about their weird math, one thing is true. They've been around a long-ass time, and that adds a dimension to the question of why playing cards are so compelling. For all of my lifetime, the Bicycle playing card deck has been functionally unchanged. For 400-something years, the 4 suits and the 52-card deck have only become more globally ubiquitous. All of those popular Chinese card games that were part of the study on addictiveness, they're played with that deck. As Gina Bloom wrote, we can know something of what it felt like for early moderns to play or watch others play these games because we use essentially the same gaming materials that they did.
It mostly comes down to playing cards being something that almost all people are kind of intimately familiar with. They are also fairly flexible. They have a surprising number of like both like mathematical and otherwise kind of utilities, but I would maybe say that simplicity is, or the familiarity would be the kind of major thing that might draw people.
I grew up playing Spoons and War and Speed and Go Fish and bullshit, and yes, solitaire with these cards. Back in the 16th century, they were playing Maw and Romestek and Naughty and Gleek. Really, it was called Gleek. I guess it still is. The universality of playing cards has resulted in a seemingly limitless number of games to play, but we're all using, more or less, the same deck. That's kind of magic. One quality shared by most of the card-based video games that I've played is that they evoke the physical act of touching cards.
When it comes to cards, digital implementations of card games and video games that use card games can manage to recreate the some of the tactile feel or the satisfyingness of playing cards that exist in real world.
You can't make a digital card game without good card sounds. Or good card feel. The intimacy and familiarity is kind of a cheat code. You're already connected to the game because you're connected to the cards.
I've seen people comment on a Solitaire Mystery of the sounds that play when you move the cards around are satisfying, so they get some of that kind of enjoyment of moving cards around.
One of the things that tickled me most about a Solitaire Mystery is that RV indicates whether or not each solitaire can be played with a physical deck. For a lot of them, yeah, it's possible. You might be tearing your cards in half and you can really only do that once, but it is possible. Playing cards are associated with everything from clownery to gambling to magic to childhood play. So, one thing we do understand about them is that their appeal is infinite. I feel like I'm doing weird shit with my hands. Do you feel like I'm doing weird shit with my hands? Ha! It's disgusting. I have carpal tunnel from Solitaire.
Carpal tunnel.
So, one thing playing big fart noise. Not me.